And this summer I've been working at a lab at UCSD.
My name is Pam Crisosimo, and I've been working at a lab at UCSD, and my job is to isolate plasma DNA for injections, mice injections, that is. My major right now, or I'm double majoring at Stanford, which I'm hopeful right now, which also I am majoring in biology, and I want to go to med school eventually. And volunteering at this lab, I've learned a tremendous amount. And I came here with ground zero, and I've learned a lot. So my job here is to make DNA. So first I have to grow bugs or bacteria, which then I can break down those bugs or DNA, and I have to break down the cell walls and proteins and stuff, and then I take the DNA from that. So right now I'm going to talk to you guys about how to make a cultured DNA, and that is called enculturation. So first you need to figure out what number the plasma is, which first, today my boss told me that I have to make a culture of NCMV B71. So for that, I need to grow the bugs up from overnight. So then I would have to go into the catalog of DNA, and I would go under that number, and that number is connected to 32. And so then I have to go into the freezer, which there's a lot of DNA, and so I go in, and there's little tubes, and on those tubes are certain numbers, and I could go through all of them, but I would rather want to just not waste my time and then go on top, and then those are the numbers. So I would just find 32. And so first thing I do is I would get a small piece of colored tape, and I have to write 3 things on them. I have to write the number of the DNA, what it is, or the date, and my initials. And so then I would write number 32, BCMV B71, today's date, and my initials BC. So then I would then go and get 3 mils of LB. And so LB means Lurtha broth. So then I would get the 3 mils of LB, and we stick the pipette into the pipette aid and suction out. And so I would take the pipette and I would put it in the pipette aid, and I would take 3 mils of LB, and then I would put it into the culture kit. This plasmid has to be ampicillin resistant. And then I would need the plasma to be absolutely resistant, and then I would put it in the freezer. And then in that box, I would have a little tube of 100, and then that 100 would stand for 100 milligrams, or milliliters. And then I would take it out of the freezer, and I would put it on the heat blocks. You can't pipette out of something that's frozen. And you can't pipette out of something that's frozen. So then I would put it on the heat block so that it would thaw. And then what I would get is going to be Pep Ben, and it's going to be different. And I would put a small bet. I would pipette 3 microliters into. And the way that it's written is lambda, LAYMB. And so then I would pipette 3 milliliters of the insulin, amp insulin. So now any bacteria or any bugs that grow in this LB. So then any bacteria and so then I make sure to put bugs that would grow into this LB will be insulin resistant. And so then I would put it back in the freezer because they need to be frozen and they can't be left outside.
So now that the media is ready and the culture tube is ready and everything's
So now that everything is ready,
freezer room.
I would go into the freezer room.
And the bacteria is stored at
and the bacteria is stored at negative 80 degrees Celsius. So I have to make sure before I start, which is all the time, I have to put my gloves on. Because it's very hazardous. And then, so I would take my tray,
10 ml culture
and then I would have my 10 ml culture.
My pipette gun, a box of pipette tips, and also
so I would have my pipettes and a box of pipette tips, and then I would go into the freezer room.
Negative 80-degree freezer, and I pull out.
And I would open up that negative 80-degree freezer, and I would pull out that box.
Where the bacteria is stored.
The box where the bacteria is stored, and I would pull that box out.
For number 32.
And I will look for number 32.
My little tube,
and so then I would take that tube number 32 out.
And then I put the rest of the box.
And then I would put that box. I would close it and put that box back into the freezer because I wouldn't want any of the other tubes to be thawing out at once. So then I would put it back. So then I have my pipette with my box of pipette tubes. And I would,
using my pipette tip, I scrape a little bit
off, and then so then with my pipette tip, I would scrape just a little bit off at the end of that tip, and I would put that little chunk into 3 mils of LB and amp, and then I would pipette and pipette down, just so you get all that extra stuff out and nothing stuck in there. And if that glycerin's too frozen and you can't isolate that chunk, then you would remove some of that LB and pipette that out, and then you would put that in room temperature and soften that up, so you would have more of a mush. And you can remove some of that bacteria that's frozen because it's softened. And you can remove a little chunk from there.
You scrape a little bit and put it.
So after you've done that, you can scrape a little bit off, and then you put it in that LB and amp. And you twist the cover back on, and then you put that back into the 80-degree freezer and chill it just a little bit.
Maybe a little bit warmer. So then you put it back, make sure nothing else is thawed.
And make sure that nothing's thawed.
You have that into solution because it defrosts pretty quickly.
So now that you have that in solution, it defrosts really quickly into a solution. Make sure that you dispose of that pipette tip in that biohazardous waste bin, because it is biohazardous waste.
And then you take the 3 ml culture tube that's labeled, and you put it into the shaker room.
And then
the shaker room is where my bugs will grow overnight. But when I'm doing
put it in the shaker room, and in the shaker room is where my bugs will grow overnight.
You need to turn down the shaker so that it's not turning so fast.
You need to turn down the shaker so it's not turning as fast, and you just have to wait until it's at a complete stop.
Put the 10 ml culture tube on the shaker,
and then after you put the 10 ml culture tube onto it, and you close the door and you turn it up to 78 degrees.
The shaker comes on again because a lot of people have.
And you have to make sure that shaker comes back on,
and after that,
because it has a little trouble.
Then you've already.
And then after that's done, you let it incubate for about 6 to 7 hours, depending on how long you want it to work in there. And then you have to accumulate a big culture, and right before you leave, you take a small culture, which is 3 mils.
You take the small culture and
you take that small culture and you separate that.